And now, it's time for Talkin New York Sports with Billy C. and Brooklyn Mike, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network of programming. And here's your hosts, Billy C. and Brooklyn Mike.
We're coming at you from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and I'm joined with my main man, Brooklyn Mike. What's up, Mikey?
How are you, buddy?
Not too bad. Better than our connection just was a second ago.
Yeah, you got a little bad weather over there?
You know what?
I was
going to say I think it's moving north because we got some rainy. It's a rainy season here in upstate New York.
Oh, tell me about. I got rained on last night, and I was drenched head to toe working, doing a little Homeland last night, which incidentally won 6 Emmy Awards this past Sunday, which I was very happy about.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Yep.
Congratulations on that. You know, do you get to join in any of those reindeer games or what?
Well, I mean, there's a big premiere tonight for first episode of season 2 that we'll be attending, and. But, you know, I didn't get to fly to the Emmys, obviously, but it's just good for the show, obviously, and to keep it going. And, you know, we're hoping to get at least 5 years out of it. It's the first time that Showtime has actually had a series that won for, you know, Best Drama. So they're very excited about that at Showtime and CBS.
Well, good stuff, man. Congratulations on that. I know you've been putting into it a long time with this whole thing. It's a tough business, that's for sure. It's almost as tough as radio talk show stuff, huh?
Exactly. It's hit or miss business, and it's you just got to get lucky. And we got lucky with this show because of the writers and the actors and the crew. I like to include them as well. It takes everybody to make a good product, and it seems like we have a winning combination on the show.
You know, it's funny just to put sports talk on hold for a sec. You know, when the big cable network, so to speak, like the HBOs and the Showtimes, busted onto the scene 20 some odd years ago. They were all like predominantly movies and stuff. And when did the shift start coming? Maybe 10, 12 years ago. Like I guess HBO was one of the first ones to put on a regular series. And now, you know, the Showtime, like what you're working on, Showtime and HBO, they seem to have the best series on TV, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you know, plus you can just get away with a lot more on cable, and you can really, you know, just go to the next limit, push the envelope, you know, when it comes to the writing. And the original series that have been on, you know, HBO and Showtime, you have like on Showtime you have Weeds and you have Dexter, and obviously HBO is known for The Sopranos, Boardwalk Empire, Entourage, just great shows. And it seems that, you know, you put these shows on and there's not too many failures. When you get a show that's on HBO or Showtime, it just seems to be instantaneously, you know, good. There's nothing that, you know, like you see on a network show, they'll put it on, it'll go 3 episodes, and they'll cancel it. It just seems that when it's on cable, they give it more of a chance, and the writing is just amazing. And these shows last, like, you know, anywhere from like 4 to 7, 8, 9, 10 seasons.
Yeah, that's good stuff. You know, you mentioned Boardwalk Empire, and I think I talked to you about her. My friend Lisa Padovani just won an award. I think it was an Emmy for Boardwalk. She does the set and all of that stuff, or maybe she does costume. I don't know. Her and her partner won an Emmy or whatever the award. I don't know the awards. I'm totally.
It probably Emmys. Yeah, Emmy was just on Sunday, so that's great.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah. So anyway, well, let's get to some sports talk. First, I want to kick off the show with. Some hockey talk. I mean, you know, we got to sprinkle in stuff that you and I could give two craps about, but I'm sure there's a hockey fan or two out there, and that's exactly what I want to talk about, man. I mean, you know, I'm sorry, Mike, but I just think that it's ridiculous. Let me backtrack for a second. NFL, and you and I both agree, and I think it would be hard to find a sports fan, regardless of their sport of choice, that would argue the point that the NFL is the premier sport in the United States, football and of course, professional football, and then the blanketed NFL, the business end of it. And when they go on strike, and we'll talk about that a little later in the show about the officials and stuff, I mean, it makes a major impact. It's news. Fans are outraged. I mean, some stuff happens when the NFL says no or yes or whatever the case is. I just don't see that juice with the NHL. And here they are. They canceled all the preseason games, so it's getting down to the nitty gritty. They had some talks last night. They're still locked out. They're discussing all kinds of stuff, except the major thing that the economic issues that are there, that are on the table, that they're not talking about. And you got players like. Some players from the Islanders are already signed and playing over in Switzerland, and I just don't see the juice, man. I don't see the power. What's your thoughts?
Well, you're right. It's the least watched of the four major sports. I mean, football being obviously number one, and yet baseball, basketball, and hockey. It doesn't have the juice. When you have it's a $3.3 billion industry, but you're comparing it to a $10 billion industry in the NFL. And just to get people caught up, people don't know, the lockout went into effect on 12:01 a.m. on September 16th. So you're right, they have canceled the preseason games, and October games are right around the corner. And it just seems that the biggest issue, which it always seems to be the issue, is money, and they don't know how to divide up the $3.3 billion in revenue. The NHL wants to cut the players' salaries immediately through escrow, while the players offer to take less of a future revenue, and it just seems they're at a stalemate. Gary Bettman and David Fuhr met, and they did discuss other things and came to agreement on things like more aggressive drug testing, but that's not the issue. I mean, you can come to an agreement on that. This issue is, the owners are taking a firm stand, and it's a significant cut in pay that they want to give the players. So right now, and you and I have said this before, I don't see hockey at all this season. I think the lockout's going to, just ruin the 2012-13 season.
Yeah, but the fact remains the same. Who cares?
I'm sure a bunch of Canadians right now are
right.
About Billy C.
I know. I'm sure people in Minnesota and and that even cracks me up. I mean, we even have hockey teams in Florida. I mean, they haven't seen ice ever, But it just makes me laugh, and what makes me laugh even more is, it's like they want a piece of two pies, and I'm not saying the players or the NHL or in any case, players in football or baseball, what have you. But here you as far as professional sports, and you and I both have been following for a long time, and we're both historically intelligent when it comes to sports, and we both know that sports figures as soon as 40 years ago, even 30 years ago, we're not making the money. And even the ratio, I mean, yes, people could always say, oh, well, the cost of living was so much lower. Yeah, but the ratio of money that the players in the 30s were making compared to what they're making today is nowhere near even close to being equal. And my point is this: if the players demand X amount of money, if a team has to pay X amount of money to field their team or whatever, however you want to put it, and they can't afford it or whatever, and that player goes with somebody else, why do the players even have to feel that they deserve above and beyond their salary in revenue shares?
Well, I don't feel that they feel that they deserve above and beyond. The point here is that they want to take away what's already theirs. Like if you're splitting the revenue 52% to 48%, and that's what the contract has been, okay, they want to take away from that. So I don't think that the NHL owners are being fair to the players, because once you take away, you can't get back.
I understand.
That's a fact.
I understand, but let's say, just for argument's sake, let's say you're a hockey player, and you make $1 million a year, right?
Okay.
Now, are you above and beyond that $1 million? You're getting a piece of that revenue share, that split?
Yes.
Okay. So my point is why should they get that? If they're signing, I could see maybe a player that's not an upper echelon player, maybe the guys that are making the league minimum, whatever. But, I mean, it's like this, unless you're a huge exec or something like that, you go work for a company, you usually have an option. You make a salary and maybe you get some other options, some stock options, or maybe you work on a commission and get, a draw type salary. Very rarely do you get this whole package deal that includes everything when you're at that top level.
Well, the bottom line is that players, and that's not just at hockey, it's in, all sports share revenue.
Right.
The thing is that these players do things that the majority of us can't do. Like if you and I work for, Citibank, and you're one of the high executives of Citibank, you can easily be replaced. But try replacing, like Rick Nash.
Yeah, but they're compensated for that. They're compensated for that in salary. The same thing if you're working at XYZ company and you're a top exec and you're making $300,000 a year. This guy Ray Nash, he's making $10 million a year. So I mean, it's relative. So that's my point. I mean, it seems, in boxing, and obviously, most of my days are revolving around boxing. The greed factor is one of the biggest negatives of the sport, and when you see the success of these leagues, NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA and NHL. Greed seems to be surfacing.
Now, when you say greed in this instance, who's being greedy? The owners or the players?
Well, honestly, I think that a player that can in any sport, not just hockey. So I don't want to just focus on hockey, but in any sport. With the exception of when there's a salary cap involved, then you can only do so much. Even when there's a salary cap involved, your performance level, with your statistics, how good you are, is going to drive what you make. And if you're making that much, if you're and I guess it's tough to blanket it all because you got only a handful of the guys that are making outrageous money, and then generally the average is the same. So maybe a statement like what I'm trying to spit out here is not good for the average player, but they're making enough is my point. Why do they got to get a revenue split too? Isn't that the business, the business end, the guy that owns the team, the guy that's invested the money, the guy writing the checks for those, weekly or biweekly payroll checks? I mean, don't they get an opportunity to make the money? It's like the same thing in boxing. You got the fighter that all of a sudden says, well, I'm the one working out. I'm the one that's taking all the punches, and they want a bigger cut, yet without the rest of the team, they couldn't even get the fights.
Yeah, but the revenue also goes to the lesser talented players. It also goes into, their future, pensions and whatnot. It's just not for their salary, today's salary. So, listen, I'm a believer in that. Number one, there's caps. Now, if someone said to you, Billy C., you're talking boxing show, well, I can cap you at this amount. You can never make more than this. Well, what happened to capitalism and free enterprise? What do you mean I can't make more than that? Why are you capping me? There's that argument too. That being said, yeah, there should be some kind of limit. There should be a minimum you have to spend, and there could be a maximum. But think about it. Think about somebody telling you, Billy, you can only make so much money and not a penny more. Well, that stinks.
No, I agree.
Now, but think about it. But these guys also bring something to the table that most of us can't bring to the table, and that is a specific talent. Anybody could be a bank executive if, you graduate and, okay, you're pretty smart, you got a diploma, I'll give you a shot. But not everybody could score 40 goals and 40 assists. So, again, I don't think it's greed on the players' part. If they say, okay, we'll keep things as they are, then fine. But it seems that ownership, they keep wanting to take away. And I guess there's a little bit of prejudice in me because I see this in the entertainment industry all the time. We see this all the time in the entertainment industry because you feel that people that work below the line, crew members, that's where they always try to pinch pennies. And when on the large scale, the large frame, we're a blip on the radar screen, a tiny little dot. All the other money is writers, actors. I need a giant trailer. I need 2 trailers. Till I get my gym put in one and I have my family put in the other. I mean, that's where all the money goes. But when you cut back, they're going to cut back on that? No, they cut back on the guy who's sweeping the floor.
No, I know,
so,
I know,
yeah,
and it's the same.
I can't really feel for the owners, here. I gotta kind of side with the players. I don't think they're asking. They're not even asking for raises. They're just saying, "Oh, let's leave things as they are," or take away 1 or 2%, not 8%, which is what they want to take away. So
no, you're right.
I gotta back them up a little bit.
No, I agree with you. I guess I got off on a tangent. It irks me when people, they make a ton of money and then they want more, and whatever. But the bottom line, the whole point is, the NHL just doesn't have the juice, damn it, and it looks like they won't have a league. And I'm glad to see players that are jumping ship and going other places like the Islanders center. John Tavares, is that how you say his last name? Tavares or
Tavares, yeah. See, that's the thing. That's the one good thing that the players have in the NHL, and also basketball. You can always go play in Europe,
right?
Right. Or Canada, or there's something that they can do with that skill that they possess. Whereas in football, if there's a lockout, these guys are moving in with their mom and dads. The guys that are making $300,000 a year, which sounds like a lot of money, to a guy like you and I and most blue collar people. But when you're making $300,000 a year and there's a lockout and you already have, your mortgage is like $5,000 a month, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, that's a whole nother ball game. But
exactly.
Speaking of basketball, we were talking a little bit earlier, and they just announced, I think it was yesterday, that the NBA is taking a move. Stern is, I was going to say Howard Stern. David Stern is taking a move to finalize a what they're calling a flopping procedure. Now, you were like, what the hell is a flopping procedure? And it's kind of funny. When a basketball player, we see it all the time. Somebody's charging to score. They're charging the net to score, and all of a sudden you see this guy that stands in front of them. They plant their feet and they flop over. They fall over and they draw the call. That's what a flopping call is. You know what I'm talking about, right? Right. And well, the NBA feels that there's some fake flopping going on. And yeah, I mean, could you imagine that? I mean, you could just close your eyes and think of it, and you say to yourself, "Of course, there's fake flopping going on. I see it all the time when they plant their feet, and they barely touch the guy, and he falls over." And NBA players have become very proficient in throwing their bodies, sliding across the floor, looking like they got destroyed. And what's happening is, and this is kind of a tie-in with the NFL referees. What's happening is the NBA is claiming that the players are fooling the NBA officials into calling a call, into calling a penalty, a foul. And, I got to laugh at this, Mikey, because, doesn't an NBA official go through training, and aren't they supposed to be similar to let's say, an NFL official? I mean, we would chastise the replacement officials for not recognizing a fake flop from a real flop, from a fake penalty from a real penalty. I mean, and what Stern wants to do is review the flops after the game, and if they determine that a player faked the flop and that the referee called a penalty on him, that they would fine the player. What's your thoughts?
You and I don't always see eye to eye, especially when it comes to like the Giants.
Well,
but when it comes to this, I agree with you 110%. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of in my life. You're right. I mean, referee goes through training. They how could you not tell I mean, sometimes you can be deceived, but you know what? Deceiving goes on in every sport. How many times has a player claimed he got hit by a pitch, but it went off the corner of the bat?
Holding in the NFL.
Holding in football. I mean, it's ridiculous. And what if who's to say that a guy charges and the defender goes down and he flops down? Well, what if he was really charged? He got hit. He wasn't faking it. And you say, nah, you know what? I think you were faking it, so I'm going to fine you. Are you crazy?
It's not even nuts? It's even worse than that. It's worse. The way I'm reading into it, it's even worse than that, because you look at it this way, right? The referee's job, right? The official's job is to determine that. It's supposed to be nipped in the bud right then. This is what they're getting paid for. He's supposed to determine if it was a real flop, if he was charged into it, or if it was a fake flop. If it's a fake flop, and I can't even believe we're talking about this as flops, but if it's a fake flop, he doesn't make the call. It's a done deal right there. If it's a legitimate call, and he calls the foul, right? This is what Stern is saying. If a referee determines in that split second, that official says it's a foul, and they go back after the game. The game's over. The outcome is over. That could have been the game-deciding foul. All right, the game is over now. He wants to review the tape and then determine if it was a fake flop or not. And then if it was, they want to find the play. I think that's ridiculous. I think that you're already paying an official to make that call. And if the official can't distinguish between a real flop and a fake flop, then he's not doing his job.
Yeah, but also it's part of the game. It's part of the game. Every player in every sport tries to get away with something now and then. I mean, true. It's the human aspect of the game, and now you want to start finding players after the fact. I mean, what's next? You gonna call timeout and go to the instant replay like we do in football or in baseball now? It's absurd. It really is absurd. And these guys should listen. I can sit on my couch and I can pretty much tell you 90% of the time if the guy's faking or not. It's ridiculous, and this is what it comes down to. I mean, come on.
Listen, if you're going to pay an official to do the job, and it's his job to distinguish whether a foul is committed or not, and that, in my opinion, that gets blanketed under whether it's a legit or fake foul. If it's a fake foul, I don't call it.
Right.
If I call it and the player got away, like you're saying, gets away with it, well, then that's the referee's fault. How does the NBA feel that they're going to turn around, review that, and basically fine the player for the referee's mistake? I find it outrageous, and it's almost sad. I think it's sad because are they that bored? They have nothing else to do in the NBA offices, or what?
Evidently not. And who's to say? Well, number one, if let's say they pass this rule or whatever, I mean, doesn't the Players Association have something to say about this? Now, timeout. You're going to start fining my players? No, that's crazy. And also, you look at the tape. You're going to tell me that whoever looks at this tape is going to know for 100% fact whether the player was legitimately charged or not charged? I mean, just because you see it on videotape, well, he hit you, but I don't think he hit you with enough force. So who are you to say?
Right, that becomes subjective. Now you're bringing in another set of eyes that you're already paying the guy that's live on the court to make that decision. I think it's sometimes the NBA comes up with some really crazy stuff. I mean, nothing for nothing, but that whole draft process is kind of crazy too. With the you get the whatchamacallit, how many chances you get, the lottery system, how many chances you get for the number one pick. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But anyway,
you're right. Like, just adding to your point, if you stink and you're the worst team in the league, you get the first pick. Bottom line,
that's the way it should be. But
that's what it is in every other sport.
It is, except for the NBA. You just get more chances at the first pick. But hey, you know how lotteries are. You could have, I could buy 10 tickets out of 12, and you buy one ticket, and the carpenter up the street buys one ticket, and you or him win, and I have 10 in my hand. You know what I mean? So come on. But anyway, let's talk a little baseball. You know, by the way, speaking of baseball, did you catch that Dickey won 20 games already this year?
Yeah, and what your point is?
You know what my point is. My point is that you put the kibosh on the Mets at the All-Star break, and you even tried to ruin Dickey's career, or at least his season, by saying that the guy would be lucky to win 18 games, and he's already got 20. And, by the way, he was the first one in the majors, I think, to hit 20 wins, wasn't he?
No, I think Gio Gonzalez has one more win than R.A. Dickey. But let's get back to putting the kibosh. I didn't have to put the kibosh on the Mets. You knew where the Mets were going.
I was so happy that day.
I was being a little hopeful.
I'm scarred for life.
Yeah, scarred for life. Please, you've been a Met fan. You are scarred for life. What I said about R.A. Dickey when I believe he was at 12 wins at the All-Star break, and we were arguing.
Was he 12 and 1, right?
Not starting for the All-Stars and blah blah blah. And it usually it's tougher to match, what you did the first half of the season because now you're into the dog days of summer and everything usually declines a little bit. So I didn't think he was, in order for him to match, he was going to have 24 wins. I thought he'd have about 18, 19. I thought he might just fall short. But you know what? I'm so happy that he didn't. I'm glad I didn't put the kibosh on R.A. Dickey. And I'm glad he got his 20 because it's really the only bright spot for this team. And he's just a great guy. I think if you ask, he did a poll and asked Met fans, who's your favorite Met right now? I think most of them are going to say R.A. Dickey because of his competitive spirit, his talent, and the way he conducts himself off the field. He's just, this guy has actually not only reinvented himself as a great knuckleball pitcher, throwing a knuckleball, between 80 and 85 miles an hour, which is unheard of, but he's also starting to become a little bit of an ambassador towards, he's not Derek Jeter, but, people are actually taking notice and of his he had the book that came out and he talked about his life and all that stuff. He's slowly becoming a little bit of an ambassador towards the game of baseball, which is great to see because he's a good guy and this is what you want. You want kids to to follow guys like this, to emulate guys like this, to for them to be their role models. So I couldn't be happier. And the only thing that concerns me is that we got the Cy Young Awards at the end of the year, and I still feel that there are going to be baseball writers out there, purists, that are going to take votes away from R.A. because he is a knuckleball pitcher, because a lot of them consider it a junk pitch. But like I said, he doesn't throw it like Necro or these guys where it just floats in at 60 miles an hour. This guy's got juice on his knuckleball. It does things that, people haven't seen before. No. So, that being said, and consider obviously the 20 wins, leads the league in strikeouts with 222. He's second in ERA with a 2.69, just 1 point behind Clayton Kershaw of the Dodgers. Leads the league in complete games, leads the league in shutouts. And he did all this by playing for one of the most, terrible teams in baseball, the New York Mets.
Well, I think that that's why, and unfortunately, with all sports, when you're on a crappy team, a lot of times the individual stars don't get the recognition. It's like the most valuable player award usually goes to a player that's on a team he's got some supporting cast, and I've heard the argument a lot where you're like, well, like I'll give you an example. Major League Baseball, most valuable player could very well be R.A. Dickey because, here's a guy that, without him, and without Brooklyn Mike putting the kibosh on the Mets, maybe they don't even win any games in the first half of the season, at least we had an interesting second half. And, crosstown rivals, Yankees, they seem to be right where I figured they would be, moving along, getting ready for the playoffs. They won last night, beat up on the Blue Jays. but those pesky Orioles are still only a game behind, and it's getting interesting. What's your thoughts? What is it? 5 games left, right?
Yeah, 5 games left. The Yankees have 2 more this weekend with the Blue Jays and 3 with the Red Sox. The Orioles have 2 more with the Red Sox this weekend and 3 with Tampa Bay. So,
both of them got tough
if you
schedules,
look at
really.
it, it's a little bit tougher on the Orioles, I think. But also, even though the Red Sox are mathematically eliminated, they've been eliminated for a while, they are still the Yankees' biggest nemesis.
That's their game. That's that series.
Yeah.
That 3-game series against the Yankees is the Red Sox season. You know,
Yes.
I'm sure that they would love nothing more than minimally going out and beating the Yankees at least 2 of the 3 games.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, like you said, it's the Red Sox season. If they could keep the Yankees out of the playoffs, or keep them from winning the division, that would make them very, very happy. Them and then everybody else in Boston. So and you're talking about the pesky Orioles. It's both teams in the last 12 games are 9-3. Like, you figured the Yankees were going to get hot, start playing the Twins and Blue Jays, but the Orioles have just, kept pace.
Yeah,
And,
so have the A's.
Identical records.
So have the A's. Two teams you laughed at me about at the All-Star break. You said, the Orioles, I know it's a fun team, it's interesting, but they're just not going to be able to keep it up. And they have. And what was the stat? What was the stat you gave me that they actually they've scored less runs? Is that the stat that the Orioles
they have scored less runs than runs. They've given up more
than
runs
they've scored
pitching wise than they've scored.
That's amazing. That's an amazing stat. It almost seems impossible, doesn't it?
It is. I mean, basically, they can get bombed one day 13-1, but then they come back the next day and they win 3-2. So that's I mean, it depends on how the runs are scored and everything, and probably more times than not, they get shelled when they lose. They lose big. But they've been winning these one-run games consistently throughout the season, and Showalter has just done an amazing job. I mean, no one thought Baltimore would still be in the race this late in the season.
No,
they usually flounder, just like like Toronto does, which they stuck to the script, but Baltimore, they didn't stick to the script, and then they made their own. They wrote their own script, and they're fighting the Yankees tooth and nail. You would have loved to see in the final 3 games against each other, but it's still going to come down to the wire. And you asked me 2 weeks ago what I thought I thought Baltimore was going to win a division. I'm sticking to it. I'm only a game behind the Yankees, and I think it's going to come down to, like we said, the Red Sox, wanting to be the spoiler and keep the Yankees out of the playoffs. And if they can win the 2 out of 3, and if Baltimore can continue its winning way, then they'll be on top. And you look at the other races. Even if the Orioles win the division, chances are the Yankees are in good position to take the wild card. The other wild card, I should say.
Well, you had predicted a couple weeks ago. You predicted that the Yankees would actually not get in. You said that the Orioles would win, and you felt that Tampa was going to squeak in. And then, ironically enough, now the Orioles and Tampa are going to go head to head, and it's probably going to dictate who gets in the wild card. That particular series. Now today, on paper it looks like the Yankees might have an easier path. Certainly, when you look at the two teams that both the Orioles and the Yankees are playing, it would back it up statistically. However, like you mentioned a few minutes ago, the Yankees got to close the season with 3 games against Boston, but Toronto, with the exception of last night, traditionally gives the Yankees a hard time. And today, Andy Pettitte goes on the mound. And, listen, I don't have the warm, fuzzy feeling about Andy Pettitte, to be honest with you. I know he's got a winning record. He's something like 5-3 right now, whatever, and he's going against a pitcher that isn't known for being that solid of a guy with a 9-win and double-digit losses. But still, Pettitte is still an older Pettitte. He's not the same Andy Pettitte. And the Toronto Blue Jays like to spoil the Yankees stuff. I mean, what do you think about today's game?
Well, they do like to spoil the Yankee stuff, but I think Pettitte is a clutch pitcher, and I think he's going to go out and pitch a good game, like he always does when it comes to pressure. he's very good under pressure. Is he the Andy of old? No. But is he, the best of what they got? Yeah, he's still, better than most pitchers out there.
Plus, he's got the hits. He's got the hitters. The Yankees are just a slugging team, man.
Well, now, they seem to, they're on fire right now. I mean, look, guys like Ichiro Suzuki, he's increased his batting average by about 15 points. They got Gardner back. Alex Rodriguez has been hitting a little bit. He increased his average. The concern right now is Robertson Cano. I don't know if people know that he was hit by a pitch last night on his left hand, and he went for X-rays. And as of now, we haven't gotten the results yet. So he continued to play in the game, but when he left last night, he had a big ice pack on his hand. So that's a major concern for the Yankees, I'm sure, right now. They're sweating that out. And he's been, over the last 5 games, he's hitting 500. He's 10 for 20. So he's starting to get into a groove, and all of a sudden, boom, pitch on the left hand, and, we'll see what the X-rays say today.
Major League Baseball, of course, is always secretly rooting for the Yankees because when the Yankees get into playoffs and in the World Series, the ratings are high. But I, for one, am so much pulling, especially in the AL, for the teams like the Tampa Bay Rays and the Orioles. And I've always liked the Chicago White Sox. They're still alive in terms of the division. They're only 1 game behind the Tigers. And then the West, I told you about the Oakland A's. They're right now, if the season ended, they're in the wild card. They're in the playoffs. They're actually still in the mathematically still able to win the division. Texas seems like one of the strongest teams in the majors. But the team that's and I admit, the Orioles, they're definitely a surprise this year. Scotty from the Talkin Boxing show with me, he and I made a bet at the beginning of the season that we both said our team would do the worst. I said the Mets would do worse than the Orioles. He said the Orioles would do worse than the Mets. So I actually won the bet. It's a bet that you want to lose. But the team that. Even though I said a couple of weeks ago that the A's keep an eye. You recall that, right? I was telling you to keep an eye.
Yeah,
on
I recall
that. Right.
So
right. I got it. It's so far and few in between. But the team that really has quietly really controlled Major League Baseball. When you think about it, they have the best record in Major League Baseball. They keep winning. And last night they threw a no-hitter. The Cincinnati Reds. I mean, they might be the best team in baseball.
They're tied right now for Washington with the best record, and it's Ohio. It's quiet. It's not that New York media. So yeah, this team is just incredible 95-62 record, and Homer Bailey threw the no hitter yesterday against Pittsburgh, and going to be a tough team to beat in the playoffs because they do have the pitching as well as the hitting. They're not just doing it with one; they're doing it with both.
And their manager isn't he from
Dusty Baker, former LA Dodger,
right? And he was with the San Francisco Giants manager for a long time. And one of these days they're gonna have the camera on him, and that toothpick is gonna come right out of his face. I don't know how he can flip it around like that in his mouth, but amazing stuff with the Reds. And I know that they were a tough, scrappy team, but. I was shocked when I realized earlier in the week that, hey man, they're tied with Washington. They got the best record in baseball. And speaking of Washington, Washington hasn't been looking as lights out. I mean, mathematically, the Braves have a chance to overtake them for first place.
Yeah, I mean, mathematically, it's 5 games left, and the Braves are 4 behind.
Right. But two more games are against Washington. And the Braves.
Exactly, and they don't have their best pitcher going,
which is ridiculous.
They pulled him.
That's so stupid. That's going to go.
There's nothing more I wish for than them to flounder.
Yeah, if they
lose that lead because of that stupid decision.
Mike, if they do that, it's going to go down in history, in Major League Baseball history, as one of the stupidest decisions a franchise could have made. Regardless of their reasoning behind it and future and all of this stuff, when every single team in any major sport will tell you that the goal for any given season is to win it all that season. You don't. It's something I learned coaching Little League in my first year, that you don't think beyond the game that you're in. And Washington is making a critical mistake. We've talked about it for weeks, and if it serves them nothing but right if they end up, faltering here and getting into the playoffs and being out in the first round and stuff like that. I know if that happened in New York, what would happen to those teams on the sports talk shows and on the back of the papers and everything else. I could only hope that half of it happens in Washington.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. You're not guaranteed tomorrow, let alone next season. You're just not guaranteed. I mean, look, when the Mets won in '86. Oh, great! We're gonna keep winning. Yeah, that was 26 years ago.
Exactly. Don't remind me. Hey, we did get in 2000, and we had to lose to the Yankees. How terrible is that?
Well, when you have 8 of them on steroids, I kind of give the Mets a pass on that.
Yeah, but that was when we had.
I throw that in the Yankee fans' face all the time. I said, well, you guys are all juiced up.
Yeah, but we also got the has-been, the Kenny Rogers, he walks in the room. I'll never forget that when of all people we pick up and of all people who lose one of the games for us, it was Kenny Rogers, and didn't he end up going back to the Yankees and doing good again?
Yeah, he did. He did. Yeah,
crazy,
exactly,
crazy. But anyway, don't get me started on the Mets. I'm trying to be nice. I just it's a season that you just want to end, and the sad part about the New York Mets is that we got nothing to look forward to next year. We really don't. They've already told us just get ready for the same kind of year, and I think it's pathetic. I really do.
No, what bothers me is that they didn't come right out and say, like Sandy Olson or the Wilpon saying, oh, don't worry, you look forward to another disastrous season next year. They still try to fool you by saying, we got some up and coming talent and this, that, and the other thing, and we're going to increase payroll by about $10 million. Come on, you're not fooling them. You're not fooling fans. You're not.
Yeah, but even if they, I agree, we do have some good talent coming up. But with the way the blueprint of the Mets organization is right now, we'll lose that talent as soon as they really shine because we won't pay them when they reach the tenure where they're free to negotiate and take the best offer. We're going to lose them, and it's been traditionally happening with the Mets for years.
No, I know. It's something that we're used to, and it's.
But they'll keep your guy.
Even today, it's still hard to get used to. But listen, Sandy Olson said that his date, his year in mind that this team is going to flourish is actually 2014, and by that point, it's his team. It's no longer Omar Manaya's team. Okay, now you have 3 years under your belt, whatever. It's your team, and so. We have nothing to look forward to in 2013. You're going to get more of the same. 2014, you got 2 big contracts coming off your payroll in Santana and Jason Bay. Now, the big question is, are you going to sign David Wright, give him an extension? Because he's under contract next year. There's a team option for $15 million. Obviously, they're going to use that team option. And R.A. Dickey's under contract again next year. These guys, if they make it to free agency next year, they're gone, man. They're gone. You got to sign these guys and lock them up before that happens. And I don't think the Mets are willing to do that. I see them taking a chance and seeing how the year goes, and then sitting down with the agents, during free agency, and losing these guys. And R.A. Dickey just came out, just the other day, and he said, I want to see what they do with David Wright. And David Wright said a few weeks before that, I want to see, what kind of talent they bring to this team. I want to see them make an effort to put a winning team on the field. And they're not going to spend the money to do that. So, listen, I think after 2013, you're going to lose those 2 guys, and we're going to see what this great plan that Sandy Olson had, talking about this team is really going to flourish in that year. Well, let's see. Let's see. But I have no. How could you have faith in the team? Can you have faith in this management?
No.
I don't.
No, I told you this, and you practically hung up on me. I don't like the GM. I don't like the manager. And you know what? I don't like David Wright. I think that they should get rid of David Wright. I think they should try to bring in some more players, maybe get a 3-for-1 deal, maybe some younger, highly touted players. As far as R.A. Dickey's concerned, you know, all the reasons that we were complaining for R.A. Dickey earlier in the show about him not getting the recognition for possibly a Cy Young or even MVP or whatever, I think we use against him. If I'm the GM, I use those same reasons against him and roll the dice with R.A. Dickey, and I'll tell you why. Most teams aren't going to take a chance with a guy, a knuckleball pitcher, especially a guy like R.A. Dickey who's old. You know, he's an older player. He's got that lack of tendon or whatever the hell was going on with his arm, where he's missing a tendon that everyone else has in their arm. That's incidentally why they said he would never be a successful pitcher, and all of that stuff. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think that the Mets could make him a rich man and not get crazy. I think David Wright could break the bank. I think they made a mistake. I still say they made a mistake by getting rid of what's his face that went to the Marlins, my shortstop.
Jose Reyes.
I love Jose Reyes. David Wright, yes, he's good and everything else, but he's trade bait. I would get rid of him if I'm there. Hey, one thing I wanted to mention about R.A. Dickey that I forgot to mention earlier, the thing that a lot of people don't take in account for him when they're voting is not only does he throw like you mentioned, not only does he throw a knuckleball 85 miles an hour, but he seems to have control over his knuckleball, something that other knuckleball pitchers don't. Just ask the catchers. The catchers don't mind. They could switch catchers around with R.A. Dickey, and that's not the case generally with a knuckleball pitcher. They only have one catcher that can even catch the guy.
Yeah, his knuckleball seems to kind of break just as it gets towards the plate, where a traditional knuckleballer, it kind of just floats in there at 60 to 65 miles an hour, and you don't know what it's going to do. So because he has that velocity on it, it just seems like you said he has the control. It breaks at the right time, and it does crazy things, but it gives the catcher a better chance to react to it. Whereas when it's floating in at a slower speed, it's moving that crazy movement all the way to the plate. It doesn't break late; it breaks like halfway. So it's a great pitch that he's really mastered. If you think about it.
Well, the Mets can't afford to lose a pitcher. They have no pitching. But
no, and not only that, Billy, is that he's also a draw. The Mets talk about not having putting fannies in the seats.
Well, it certainly doesn't help.
Not spending money. But if you put R.A. Dickey on the mound, people will come to watch him pitch.
People
watch him pitch when he goes away to other ballparks. So he's a draw, and they can't lose that. David Wright's not a draw.
Right, and I was just going to say, two things. One, I was going to throw in, that's how stupid the GM is. He's telling us already that we're not going to have a competitive team, so obviously they're not going to do great with ticket sales next year. I mean, that's a stupid thing to say, business-wise. But the other thing is that David Wright, David Wright, if you could find somebody that's willing to ante up for him, I'd say get rid of him, because the truth of the matter is who really would take David Wright? I mean, I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not disvaluing him, discrediting him at all. I mean, obviously he's an upper echelon player, but most teams that come to my mind anyway aren't dying for a David Wright. I mean, third base isn't exactly a mystery position where you got to have the perfect guy, and David Wright just happens to be in the right place for his talent, and he does a lot of stupid things. I mean, that barehanded move he does, he does it too much. He does it sometimes when he doesn't have to. Granted, it's successful most times, but I don't know, man. If I'm what's his face, Sandy Olsen. Yeah, Olsen. I try to shop him around. I try to get rid of him.
You know what? I agree in the fact that if they're gonna, not sign him, then try to get something for him. They made a big mistake in letting Jose Reyes go to free agency when there were teams in the hunt that could have used him last year for the playoffs, and we could have gotten something, another a couple of prospects, good solid prospects, A-level prospects. But they made the mistake of going to free agency. Why? I have no idea. And putting on this farce like we're going to compete and we're going to make them an offer, and then we all know what happens. So that being said, yeah, if you don't want to sign right to an $18 to $19 million a year contract, you don't want to spend the money, then you better damn well shop around next year because he's under contract next year, and send him to a contender. And get something for him,
right?
Right. At least one A-level prospect he's worth, because listen, David Wright is like you said, he's an upper echelon. You can't take that away from him. But I know what it is about David Wright you don't like, and I think it's the fact that he's just not a leader.
He's a crybaby. I think he's a crybaby. I really do.
He's soft.
Well, I mean, he's soft until he gets behind a mic and says they better sign this guy and sign that guy, and all of a sudden now you're thinking you're better than you produce, and yeah, I know he's had doesn't he have the leading batting average on the team or something? Isn't he?
He's now the career.
Oh, right, career hits leader, right.
But he's been around a while. He's a good hitter. I mean, that was going to happen.
Listen, if you're gonna build a youth, if you're gonna make a youth movement, if the GM is gonna continue with this, don't worry, in 2014 we're gonna have a contender. Then you know what I want to see, and I hate to say it because I love the Mets. Then I want to see all the youth. I want to see those young players play. I want to see the whole team filled with young players. I want that infield to gel together. I don't want David Wright in that mix. I don't want a guy that we're lucky. Who was it that had the disease that he made it through the whole year? Was that Murphy? Didn't one of them have one of the
disease.
Two? Either Murphy or Ike Davis. I'm pretty sure it was Murphy. Has some kind of funky disease, and if it inflames up, he's sick. He gets flu-like symptoms, and he can't play. And that's what they had found out was his problem at the end of last year. I'm pretty sure it was Murphy. I don't think it was. It
wasn't Ike Davis, that was for sure.
Yeah, it wasn't Ike Davis because he had gotten injured. His was a legit injury. And they ended up getting a year out of him. I mean, he didn't leave or anything, but I mean, that's the kind of things you need to address. You need to address. If you're going to go with a youth movement, get the pieces of the puzzle in place so that they can play a season together. That's number one. Number two, build a friggin' bench, okay? Get yourself some talent on the bench so that when you need to go to another player, you have them. And by all means, get some pitching. I don't care if you got to go get some high school kids. Go get that Danny Amante or whatever the kid's name. He's probably 45 now. I know he's still pitching in the little leagues, but come on, I mean, go and get somebody good. I mean, Mikey, why waste our time with David Wright? I just don't get it.
Well, you know what? Let's address the pitching. The starting pitching is not bad. I mean, if Santana has a decent year, you got Dickey, you got Harvey's going to come back and have a full season.
So far, you mentioned two.
Wheeler eventually is going to come back. The problem is when it comes to pitching is the bullpen.
And
it's a disaster.
And they didn't think that was a problem at the beginning of the year. Remember?
No, they thought it was. They said, "Oh, we got Roush, we got Frankie." It was horrible.
They got rid of a couple of solid bullpen guys from last year. They got rid of them, and they you know what the Mets do? You know what the Mets do that pisses me off? When they get rid of a player, they never, and I can't recall them doing it in the last 10 years. They never replace that player with equal or better value players. They always lose a notch. You know what I mean? Like Jason Bay. They bring Jason Bay in, they sign him to $1 gazillion, and didn't they give up Chavez, Andy Chavez, for his spot? Remember Chavez?
Yeah, Andy Chavez, the guy who made the catch in the St. Louis series. Yeah,
right. And right after that, what did the Mets do? They get rid of him. He goes.
Well, they got rid of him. I mean, it wasn't a trade.
No, I know.
Yeah.
No, they didn't sign him. They ran out of money. They couldn't keep a guy like that, and that's my point. But anyway.
No one knew that Bay would be the disaster that he was.
Oh,
I mean, people right now, they say he's probably the worst signing ever in the history of the Mets. I mean, he just floundered that much.
Maybe baseball. Think about it.
It could be. I mean, I've never seen a guy just drop off talent-wise so drastic.
Well, we got to take a break, but let me ask you a question. when he leaves the Mets, because we know that's inevitable. When he leaves, and I don't care if he hits 65 home runs next year. He's going to leave the Mets. I mean, if the Mets keep him, they're crazy. Is he going to rebound on another team?
That's usually the case,
isn't it? I mean,
well, look, yeah. I mean, sometimes when a person leaves New York, and this is the whole thing about playing in New York, they just do better. I mean, look at AJ Burnett with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's flourishing with the Pirates. He couldn't do that in New York. So I think but here's the other thing that makes me scratch my head, bro, is that this guy played for the Boston Red Sox. Okay, that's not exactly like a small market, and he did well, 36 home runs and over 100 RBIs, and he comes here and he's garbage. That's
because they start. Hey, you want to take a break or you want to keep going? It's up to you.
Well, I will take our break. I got to fuel up with a little coffee while we take our break.
All right. Well, let's just look at it this way. The Boston is just as vicious with their teams as we are here in New York. I think it's a case when a player goes, and maybe it's more in New York, but when a player leaves their regular place and they go to another, they try to change things. Oh, all of a sudden the batting coach, you've been doing this all wrong all your whole career, Jason. Try swinging a bat like this now, and then a guy can't connect with the ball. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Exactly. I don't know if that was the case with the Mets trying to change this guy, but something happened.
Well,
something happened with this guy mentally, physically, and he's just not the same. I don't know if it was all those concussions that he's got in the outfield, 2-3 concussions. I don't know what it is, but he's a shell of himself, basically.
Yeah, and the thing is that once they go into these slumps, then they overdo. They try too much to change and get back and all that happy stuff, and then they make it worse. But, hey, you just had a great segue, concussions, that I want to bring up when we start talking about football as soon as we come back from break. So let's take a break. We'll be back in about 2.
Talkin Boxing with Billy C. now has official merchandise available on TalkinBoxing.com. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, and mugs. And yes, even undergarments. Talkin Boxing apparel is the perfect gift for the boxing fan in your life. Log on to www.talkinboxing.com. That's TalkinBoxing.com and place your order today.
If you're in upstate New York and you need a trucking company, then you need Rosselli Enterprises. Rosselli Enterprises is trucking at its finest. They have it all. Dump trucks, dump trailers, walk-in floors, flatbeds, flowboys, tankers, loaders, and a full line of roll-off containers for any job, big or small. Rosselli Enterprises is also the source for all your sand, gravel, and topsoil needs. Visit them on the web at RosselliTrucking.com or call 315-433-5115. That's 315-433-5115 and tell them Billy C sent you.
Join us here for 2 hours as Billy and the gang do what they do best.
Every time I start talking about boxing, a white man got to pull Rocky Marciano out the ass. Rocky Marciano was good, but compared to Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano ain't.
Hit Joe Louis's ass.
Joe Louis was 75 years old when he fought.
Huh? What?
We're supposed to be talking boxing.
It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C.
We've got a great matchup tonight. Fighting out of the left corner is the #1 ranked contender.
No, he is not.
I'm sorry, but who are you?
I am the IDO computer. I am programmed to provide only fair and unbiased boxing rankings. This fighter is the number 15 ranked contender.
Fair and unbiased boxing rankings? That's a new concept.
Actually, it is not. The IDO has provided unbiased computerized rankings for many years.
Well, we've still got a great fight tonight, folks. In the left corner is the number 15 ranked contender.
The IBO, the champion of integrity. Learn more at iboboxing.com.
And we're back. You're listening to Talkin New York Sports with Billy C and Brooklyn Mike. And Mikey and I are getting ready to talk about what we like best, and that's football. But before we start talking about that, Mike, you had a great segue. Whether you planned it or not, it works out perfectly. We were talking earlier this morning about an article I read about Jim McMahon, and Jim McMahon, as you all recall, hopefully you recall, he was the quarterback for the Chicago Bears when they won the Super Bowl in 1986. One of the best defenses, the '85 Bears, right, were the one of the best defenses known. Well, Jim McMahon was recently interviewed and says if he could do it all over. Now, here's a guy that I think he might have won an MVP one year. He was in the he won a Super Bowl ring. He was also a Pro Bowl selection. Very successful in the NFL. And he says if he could do it all over again, he would have went to play baseball because of all the concussions. Now, he was a guy that threw himself around, but he sustained a lot of concussions, and he's one of those players in that 20-player lawsuit against the NFL claiming that they're withholding information about concussions, man. What do you think?
Well,
2,000 players, not 20. 2,000, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's 2,400 players, retired NFL players that have seeking a lawsuit against the NFL for the concussions. McMahon had 4 over his career. Maybe he had others that he didn't know about. But listen, I feel for Jim. I feel for anybody that's suffering, from the concussions. But you know what? This is the profession of their choice. Nobody twisted their arm and said you have to be a football player. It comes with the territory. I don't wish them anything bad, but how do you played the game? Nobody forced you to do it. You know what I'm saying?
You're a mean one.
McMahon says that he'll walk into a room, he'll have an answer machine, he'll play the message, and 2 minutes later he forgets who calls.
Yeah, so do I.
I mean, obviously there's a problem. It's like early dementia.
Yeah, well, that's what he's claiming.
Yeah.
Well, all I could say is, you're a mean one, Brooklyn Mike.
Come on.
No, but I agree with you, man. It is what they sign up for, and it's hard. It's it's like the same thing. Years ago they used to complain before the head concussions, the players used to complain about their knees. And I remember seeing Mike Ditka. There was a show on Mike Ditka and the struggle he has to do to get up every day, and this is the price I paid, blah, blah, blah. But like you said, I know I was kidding around, but the truth of the matter is that's what you signed up for. In boxing, Victor Ortiz was chastised because he came on the, in front of the mic. You remember when he fought and lost, he says no one should have to take a beating like that. Yeah, if you're an accountant, if you're a carpenter, if you're a lawyer, but when you're a boxer, you're supposed to take those beatings. And the same thing in football. I mean, come on, it's a contact sport, and that's why you're making more money than an accountant or a carpenter, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. I mean, how do you get around it? I mean, you probably have the best quality helmets money can buy right now.
Even better now.
Yeah, I mean, better than years ago. I mean, years ago it was leather heads basically.
No, I mean even you. I don't mean that far back.
But still, you know what I'm saying. I mean, we've come a long way in technology as far as equipment, but it still seems that players are getting these concussions, and sometimes. It's not because of a cheap shot. I mean, it's only recently we've really paid attention to helmet hits. Back 10 years ago, we weren't seeing this. Guy gets clocked and his helmet hits the other guy's helmet. So be it. But now the guys have to reinvent how they tackle somebody to try to avoid these helmet to helmets, and then those guys getting fined heavily. Even if they did it by accident. But, getting back to this, again, it's part of the sport, unfortunately. And unless you take away the sport altogether, which that'll never happen because it generates billions and billions of dollars every year. So what do you do? I mean, do you start making players sign waivers as they enter the NFL now?
Well, I think I don't want to change the game. And you make an interesting point about the helmet-to-helmet hits. Again, I feel like I'm 6 degrees to separation in the sport of boxing, but it's the same thing. A fighter that goes in with his head first, head-button fighter, a guy like Bernard Hopkins who's known for going in head first and causes headbutts, and Timothy Bradley, fighters like that. I mean, here's the thing. Yes, they go in head first. Yes, they may cause a headbutt. Yes, you may tackle head first and go helmet to helmet. But guess what, man? The truth of the matter is you got the same risk of injuring yourself as you do injuring the player you're going after in football or in boxing, the head that you're going to clash. So I think it's unfair. I think that if you want the intensity of the game, then that's what comes with it. If you don't want the intensity of the game, people are already complaining that quarterbacks get overprotected. I'll never forget, I know your hero, Eli Manning. I'll never forget, the game a couple of years ago that got him. It was against the Titans, I believe. And they had a play where he was basically tackled. And what does he do? The defensive player lets up because the play before that actually went against the Giants, and at the time Vince Young, they called roughing the quarterback, and he got a first down or whatever it was. And then Eli comes back, and the defender releases his grip after he has his hands wrapped around him. The referee's standing right there, releases his grip so he doesn't draw the flag. And what does Eli do? Closes his eyes and throws one of those famous "who cares who catches it" and it sticks in his player's helmet type plays. And I mean the bottom line is this. Do we want to see them rip that quarterback and smash him down to the turf? I do. I want to see it, especially if he's wearing a Giants uniform. I want to see the guy getting hit on the turf. I don't like this double standard. Last week we had the guy from the Raiders. Darius Haywood-Bay was a guy that got clobbered by, I think, a Steeler player. And he doesn't even remember the hit. He's watched it on television, doesn't even remember the hit. Do we want to eliminate those hits?
No, they don't want to eliminate the hits. They just want to, basically, like I said, you have to tackle with your shoulder. You have to hit with your shoulder and not your helmet. But there are times when it's just, it's unavoidable. If you go into a guy's chest, and you come up on them, all right, sometimes the helmet's going to hit. I mean, it's not like they're spearing with their helmet into the other guy's helmet. And you make a good point by saying the defender is just at as much risk as the offensive player, getting concussions. It's quite possible he can get a concussion.
Let me ask you this. I played running back in high school. We were taught to put our head down and hit the line, right? And if I'm running, if I hit that line and I get through the first contact, so to speak, and I got my head down, and a defender comes at me, a natural thing is for him to put his head down and not go head to head, but put his head down. If he's standing straight up, he's going to get my helmet in his chest, which he's going to get run over. So I mean, you're asking a player to think rather than react, when some coaches teach the total opposite. They want them to react, not think. Well, I guess you're lost for words. I guess we lost Mike, so we'll get Mikey back here in a sec, and that's one of the terrible things about not seeing what was going on. Are you back?
I don't know what happened.
I don't know, man. I think it was on your end. No, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But did you hear what I said?
Yeah, no, I heard your point, and your point was, about being a defensive player and moving your head. And a lot of times that a player moves his head to protect himself, and by doing that, he gets hit in the head.
Right.
So, I mean, you're 100% right. And then the referee will call a penalty on that. And even though the guy wasn't doing it intentionally to hurt the guy, he was doing it to protect himself. Like when a quarterback, he'll flinch down to protect, and when he brings his head down, that's where the guy's, he was not aiming for his head, but because of the quarterback's reaction to protect himself, he got hit in the head, and now you're charging the guy with a flag.
Well, here's some statistics for you about head injuries. And this came from the neurosurgery it was sportsmedicine.com, NewYorkTimes.com, and neurosurgerytoday.org. I was actually discussing this, and these statistics are about a year and a half, maybe even 2 years old. It was a discussion that we were having on the Talking Boxing with Billy C show, and I always kept these stats because they amazed me so much. And what it was a knock on head injuries to the sport of boxing, and they compared it to the sport of football. Now check this out. In high school, 15% of all players that play high school, 15% suffer head injuries, and these are all concussions. These are all based on concussions. There's other lesser head injury, but these are all concussions. 15%. Now, when you think about the number of how many, if you got 100 players and 15%, that's only 15 players. Yes, it's still 15%, but 15 players doesn't sound like a hell of a lot. But high school, think of how many high school football players there are throughout the United States, and then take that number, whatever that number is, which I don't know, but there's got to be, just in New York State alone, there's got to be a couple hundred high schools, with 40, 50 kids on a team. When you think of that percentage, it's an outrageously high number, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
a scary number.
Yeah. Well, college, which is the next level up, in terms of obviously the level of play, but also the numbers, because college is there's not as many colleges as there are high schools, but still there's a hell of a lot. Now that number actually goes down a little bit, and you would think that the level of athlete now is more refined. In high school, you got a lot of players that are playing that maybe shouldn't be playing. Maybe they're playing in an area like where I live, where they just need some bodies, man. Any kid that wants to play on the team is going to make the team. College, the number drops down. It's 10% of all college players suffer some kind of concussion, which is also, to me, an outrageously high number. When you get to the pro level, which is a fraction of the amount of players that play in professional football versus college or high school, it jumps to 20% of all players have sustained a concussion in the NFL, which gives reason why guys like Jim McMahon have a case going on.
But that's interesting that you said that 15% in high school, then it drops to 10% in college. You would figure it would drop again when you get to the pros, but for some reason it increases from college to pro. Now, if you would have told me that it decreased from college to pro, I would have a theory on why this is happening, but that's very unusual. I don't know why it would increase when you get to the pro level, especially nowadays with trying to protect all the players, and you're still having all these concussions.
Yeah, well, now that they've taken precaution. If a player gets a head injury, they're automatically taken out of a game and everything else. So, in boxing, just to give a comparison, which a lot of people are shocked to hear these numbers. And granted, there's a lot less boxers than football players across the United States. But all boxers, whether they're amateurs or professionals, 1.6%, 1.6 have suffered a concussion. Huge difference, percentages-wise. Huge.
What is your guess on why boxers have such a low percentage of concussions, whereas football players have this, and they have helmets on? So I have a theory. I'm just curious if you have a theory on why this happens, or do they know for a fact why it happens?
They didn't. I don't have what they say they know as a fact, but what I could think is that the impact in football is coming from your whole body. It's the whole weight of your whole body that's making contact. In boxing, regardless of the difference in power that you or I may have, that's different. It's still coming from your arm, your upper body, whatever. It's not the whole weight behind you is coming in. At least most fighters can't do it. Obviously, some fighters can, but to me, that would be the reason. What's your theory?
That's partially the reason, I think, as well, is that the impact of the blow, as opposed to an arm, as opposed to the person's whole body coming at you, full steam. But would there be a difference in boxing? Obviously, when you're fighting somebody, you're looking at what's coming at you. I mean, a lot of times, you'll get hit, but you see it coming, and you might brace for it.
Right. Like
the guy's throwing a combination. I know he's coming to my head. I'm gonna cover up, but if the punch slips through, hits me in the chin. Okay, fine, but I'm bracing. Whereas in football, I think a lot of these injuries come from hits that they don't see.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and that's probably the main reason. They're not counting on it. They're not waiting to get hit. They're looking at the ball. They're looking at
Exactly.
the guy. They're looking at the guy that they're supposed to block, or they're looking at something else, and then all of a sudden they get hit. You know, in boxing, you're looking to get hit. You're defending against it. No, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's not only the amount of the impact; it's the element of surprise in football. Where in boxing, it's not. I mean, you got a guy like Pacquiao knocked that hat. Well, that was a surprise. That came out of nowhere. That left hook, you never saw it. But most times that in fighting, a guy is bracing himself because he's in there to get hit, and he's looking at it. Whereas a quarterback gets blindsided, or a receiver catches the ball, looking at the ball, and all of a sudden, boom, he's cracked.
Right.
So
right.
That's to it as well.
Yeah. Hey, one quick thing before we talk about the Jets. I mean the Giants, and then cry about the Jets, and then get into our picks this week. But did you catch that well, first of all, I wanted to mention that Ricky Hatton's coming back. Did you catch that?
Yeah, isn't he fighting
Sinchenko?
Yeah, that's the guy that Paulie Malignaggi beat up.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a fairly safe fight for Ricky.
I don't know how
safe.
safe.
Another name before him though, which I kind of questioned, and it was a guy who was a real banger, and you would obviously know this because of the show. But there were another name mentioned before Sinchenko?
Well, he wants to get a big fight, but Love More Nadeau, which is a fighter that was calling him out and stuff. I felt that he should take an easier fight first. Sinchenko's not an easy fight, I mean, for a guy that's been out for a couple of years, But anyway, he's always been one of my favorites, so I hope nothing but the best. I guess he's in really good shape, but
he has. I've seen pictures of him. He's back in, into really good shape. He stopped with the drinking and all that other stuff. But I guess basically his goal again is to obviously capture the welterweight crown. And is he looking to go after Paulie? Because I mean, he did beat him, but Paulie's coming out saying that the way Paulie fights now, he can easily beat Ricky, which I think he's going to have a much better chance, and I think he could actually beat him.
I don't know, man. I hope somebody destroys Paulie Malignaggi. I just think that he's listen, I like him. I thought that he showed a lot of heart against Miguel Cotto, but I'm not a big fan of Paulie Malignaggi. But anyway, real quick, did you catch that the Los Angeles is looking to build another stadium? They just got approval. Los Angeles, the city council just approved a $1.5 billion downtown football stadium that they want to build, and the NFL is all for it. They're saying, we sent out a memo to any teams that may consider moving to L.A. How many stadiums did they have in L.A. that teams have played in and then left and came back and went across the bridge to play somewhere else? I mean, they're almost as bad as we are in New York.
Yeah, that's amazing that they approved that. And then, what possible team could you move there besides – the only one that comes to my mind is Jacksonville. That's the only team that comes to my mind that, if anybody wants to leave, it's the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, but he's going to move the Jacksonville Jaguars to another place and do the same crap that he does in Jacksonville. Statistically – Jacksonville, the location of that team is perfect. For Florida, it's centrally located. You can pick up fans from all around. The problem with Jacksonville isn't the location; it's the team. The guy's not spending the money. He's not shopping for the right produce to make the dinner, as Bill Parcells used to like to say. But crazy stuff. But anyway, let's not get. We got a lot of New York football to talk, and let's start off with the Giants. Thank God they lost a couple of games. I love it. I wish nothing but the worst on the New York Giants. But with all seriousness, they got one of their top receivers may not be playing Sunday in Knicks. What's your thoughts?
Well, you know what? Knicks was out the other day. They haven't played in 10 days, and they destroyed the Carolina Panthers. And I heard a lot about that, obviously living in Charlotte. A lot of disappointed fans over here. But number one, they're 2-1.
And you and I disagreed. That's right. You and I disagreed on that. You called me that next day and you're going, come on, man. If you lived, you wouldn't be a little happy for the Giants. I'm like, absolutely not. You just couldn't understand my point about that, man. I just, you know.
What I said to you and what I'll tell everybody is that when you move away from your hometown, you're a New Yorker through and through, and you have that hometown pride. Even though the Giants are not my team, and I always root against them, there's that little bit of hey, New York, of course we're going to beat you. That kind of
yeah, but not the Giants, man. So you would be the same thing with the Yankees?
Probably not as much. Because everybody knows I can't stand the Yankees. And if I had to weigh it on a scale, I'd rather root for a Giant team than a Yankee team.
Wow.
If I had to.
Well, I see now. I can't. I couldn't do it. I couldn't watch the 2 Super Bowls that put the New York Giants against the New England Patriots because they are both my worst teams. I hate them, and actually, I hate to even say it, but I think I hate the Giants more than I hate the New England Patriots. If you can fathom that.
I agree with you 100% because you know more Giant fans than Patriot fans. That's why I was rooting for the Patriots. Yeah, even though they're in the Jets division and I can't stand Belichick and I can't stand Brady, what Belichick did to the Jets and blah, 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 I still rooted for New England to win because you know what? I'm not going to hear it as much as I'm going to hear it from all my Giant fan friends.
I know. That's the worst.
Why I root for New England.
They ruin it. It's the Giant fans and the Yankee fans. They're generally the same fan, the same person, and they're the worst. They're the worst. But how about this? And this made me sick, Mike. This made me sick, and we didn't even get a chance to get everybody prime, get you and I prime for this. But did you catch that Michael Strahan is among the nominees to get into the Hall of Fame? If this guy gets in the Hall of Fame, now I am not. First of all, I'm not taking anything away from his talent. Yeah. What's his face? Brett Favre laid down and had him steal the sack record from my man. But still, is this a Hall of Famer? Is Michael Strahan a Hall of Famer?
He was one heck of a sack leader. I don't know if he's going to get in on the first ballot. I doubt he will, but I think as time goes on, I think he'll eventually get in. You don't think so?
I don't know. It's just sickening. You think he was that? I mean, Lawrence Taylor. When he played, and obviously I'm a Jet fan, and I wasn't a big Lawrence Taylor fan because he was with the Giants, but Lawrence Taylor was an exceptional player. Lawrence Taylor could do it. Yes, he admits that he had a lot of supporting cast members to help him succeed while he played for the Giants. But Lawrence Taylor was a difference maker. Offenses design plays specifically with Lawrence Taylor in mind. To me, those are Hall of Fame players. A player that can change the impact of a game, a player that can, have you alter your game plan to play around him. I'm not taking Michael Strahan's game away because he was a talented player, but he wasn't a Lawrence Taylor. He wasn't a player that you built your whole offensive game plan around.
Okay, number one, you said Taylor was an exceptional player. Michael Strahan's an exceptional player. Taylor revolutionized the game. He changed the way people had to defend, him and what he did, what he brought to the game. He changed the game. He was the best at his position.
What lineman?
No. Taylor. He
no,
just
I know. I'm being sarcastic because my whole argument with him during that era was that he was basically a down lineman. Until his latter part of his career when he was actually dropping back into pass coverage and stuff. This was a guy that traditionally rushed the quarterback, and he got labeled as a superstar linebacker when really he was a pass rusher.
Yeah, absolutely a pass rusher, but he had the speed to cover the tight ends. I mean, he revolutionized the game. He
was doing an 8-ball of coke.
Who's the best linebacker in the history of football? His name comes up.
Well, he was doing an 8-ball of coke before the game.
Come on, you gonna trash Lawrence Taylor now? The guy was great.
No. I'm not gonna trash him. Didn't he just rape some 12-year-old prostitute or something? Oh no, he got off of that. I'm sorry. But
she was 11, but who's counting?
Yeah, no, she was actually 13, and it was Jersey. I think she's legal there. I don't know.
But to get back to Strahan, you make this point that was he this great player? Okay, did defenses have to look out? We're playing Strahan this week. Here's a guy who just got into the Hall of Fame, Curtis Martin. Was Curtis Martin Barry Sanders? Was Curtis Martin Walter Payton? No, but for his era, was he dominant? Was he? Did he have longevity? Was he? Yeah. So and he had decent numbers. He had great numbers. But they put him in the Hall of Fame.
What's different between Michael Strahan and that Jean-Paul Johnny Booby Dooby guy from the Giants? What's the difference?
Jason Pierre-Paul.
Yeah, him. The land from the three name people. Him. He's just as an impact player. And you look at the Giants, and this is where I give the Giants a lot of credit, all kidding aside. The Giants traditionally, and this goes prior to Lawrence Taylor, because remember, people forget, prior to Lawrence Taylor, the fans were outside Giants Stadium burning their tickets because the Giants were fielding such garbage teams. That whole era changed with Lawrence Taylor and everything else. They became a powerhouse team, a franchise, which they used to be prior to that. But now, when you look at what they consistently do well since that era, since the LT era, is that they're building a front four defense and a linebacker crew that really you could challenge any team in the NFL to come up with a better group of guys, and they've done it year after year after year. And Michael Strahan, in my opinion, was just another one of those talented players that the Giants were able to put together and work well as a front four, as a front seven, however you want to look at it. And he was a guy that benefited. Yes, he never fixed his teeth. Yes, he's got the Subway commercials. Yes, he's on Good Morning America today or whatever the hell show he's on. He's doing well for himself. But is he a Hall of Famer? In my opinion, I'm not so sure.
Well, I don't think he's going to get in on the first ballot, but I think he definitely deserves consideration. Don't forget, Billy, he played 15 seasons, okay, and he was still
14 too many.
15, 14?
No,
well, he was still
I
effective
said
towards the end of his career.
I said 14 too many for me.
No, 14 too many for you.
No, you're right.
But he was still effective towards the end of his career.
You're right.
He holds the record for sacks for the Giants.
That was a robbery.
No, I'm talking about all time.
No.
All time, 141.
I know, but the season sack record, he broke Gastineau.
Okay,
remember?
even if Favre didn't lay down,
he laid down.
Bush League, of course it was. It was Bush League, but that's not Strahan's fault. That was Favre.
I know.
He gave it to him.
Yeah,
okay, but take it away. He still had 21 sacks that year,
and he wouldn't have beaten Gastineau, who had 22 sacks. And Gastineau, his team. You know what? People don't give. Listen, Gastineau was a flake and everything else. Okay, but what they don't give credit with Mark Gastineau, and the same thing that people have forgotten about Jim Brown, the running back for the great running back from the Cleveland Browns. Jim Brown, his teammates hated him. Watch the footage of him, and you show me how many terrific blocks Jim Brown used to get. His team hated him, and guess what? So did the Jets. They hated Mark Gastineau. Do you remember that he used to get penalized for that stupid sack dance? Now, they do it. They do worse than that now, and they're allowed to do it. Come on, man. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. Now, granted, he had a great group of guys with him. He had Klecko, Abdul Salam, and Marty Lyons. I mean, though that front four was a typical giant. It was like a giant front four. That was the only time, aside from the Jets in 1968, when they had a solid defensive front four. That was the only other time that the Jets had a dominating front four, was that New York Sack Exchange.
Exactly. And let me just say this. Do I think it's crazy that Strahan gets consideration for Hall of Fame? No, I don't think. I think he had a solid career. I think Tiki Barber, who's also up for consideration, that's a joke to me. He should never get into the Hall of Fame. If Strahan gets in 3-4 years from now, fine. I don't have a problem with it. What I have a problem with is that he gets in before a guy like Joe Klecko. I think Joe Klecko was the anchor of the sack exchange. I mean, Gastineau had
I think
1 or 2 great years, but Klecko was solid throughout his career, and he's the only player to be elected to the Pro Bowl at each position
on the
of
line,
the defensive line.
Yeah, no, that's
come on.
Yeah, no,
that's a joke that he's not in the Hall of Fame.
You're right, but it becomes a popularity contest, and that's what pisses me off about Strahan. America seems to love Michael Strahan, and nobody gives a crap about Joe Klecko. But you want to know what? Just jumping back into the New York Stock Exchange, and I'm not discrediting Klecko or Gastineau at any stretch of the imagination, but really, the unsung heroes of that line were those two middle guys, Abdul Salan and Marty Lyons, were very underrated players, especially Abdul Salan, who you never heard his name, and I mean, those guys with the Yankees, they used to take up two guys each, and Klecko and Gastineau would be free. Gastineau had that strength where he could toss a guy to the side, and then he had the speed to get to the quarterback. Klecko didn't have the speed, but he had the extra strength, But without those two in the middle, it was tough. But let's talk a little about the Jets. The Jets are doing better than we both thought they would going into the fourth game of the season. They're 2 wins, 1 loss. They're in first place, tied for first place. Not that matters anything for the season this young. This is the first quarter of the NFL season already, Mikey. We're at the fourth game. Now, I thought, and we talked about this when we did our NFL preview, I think the NFL has changed their movement. I think the Giants actually are a pretty good explanation why, and I think that they've kind of become the hidden blueprint of the NFL. I don't think that teams put as much or any emphasis in preseason football anymore. I think that a lot of teams are afraid of injury because of the money and all of this stuff that we're talking about, and they hold their players back. Therefore, they're looking at that first quarter of the season to get their starters gelled and be what we call football ready, the hits and all that stuff, where they're playing full games. And if you can walk away out of those first 4 games with a 500 record, 2-2, you're in good shape to make a run and make the playoffs and maybe get into the big game. Now, with all that said, we look at the Jets. Yes, they're looking okay. They're looking at the very worst case that they'll go into the close the first quarter at a 2-2 mark, even if they come up shorthanded. But there's a lot more added to the mix right now, and of course, I'm talking about Revis. He's out. It looks like for the year, and they're looking at Kyle Wilson to fill in. I like Kyle Wilson. I know you don't. I'm not saying he's going to fill in for Revis. But how can I help but say, and I know that I honestly I don't know what your reaction is going to be to this, but how can I help not say, Revis, it serves you right for not doing what you were supposed to be doing for the last couple of years in preseason and being game ready. And I know that no one touched him. I know that, it was a freak accident. It could happen anytime. Just ask Vinny Testaverde. It just goes to show you that you're playing games like this and stuff happens just like last year with the hamstring.
Well, the hamstring, yeah, that's because, he missed, all the practices because he held out. And hamstring injury, once you have a hamstring injury, it can come back anytime.
Right.
This, however, a torn ACL had nothing to do with his preparation. I mean, the guy was prepared. I mean, the guy he's a quality, a cornerback, the best in the league. Had nothing to do with it. I mean, I can't say, it serves you right. I mean, look, I'm not a fan of the guy. I'm a fan of his talent. I'm not a fan of him off the field and all his antics about holding out and everything. So, I mean, I don't have that same feeling about it serves you right. If it was his hamstring, that would really piss me off because that tells me that he's not in shape or he wasn't game ready. But it wasn't the hamstring injury. This is a totally different injury. This is totally out of left field. And like you said, nobody touched him. He just turned the wrong way. And
what do they do now?
He tore his ACL.
What do they do now? Is it over for them?
Bro, I mean, did you think it was not over even if he was healthy?
No.
You think this team was going to make the playoffs?
No. Playoffs?
Okay.
Playoffs?
Right.
Playoffs.
Listen, exactly.
Listen, I still think that this actually could have been the best thing to happen to Rex Ryan. And the reason why I say this is because now any failure that comes to the Jets, they're going to say it's because of Revis. They lost their guy. But the holes we talked about long before the season started are still there, and they're alarming. You know, they can't get to a quarterback unless they blitz. And now without Revis, they're going to be susceptible. They can't stop a tight end. They can't stop a guy out of the backfield. They can't stop that stuff on the defense. The defense that's supposed to be the strong suit is not the strong suit. And now we got to rely on that offense that can't move the ball. Mark Sanchez, who's throwing under 50%. He's got 99 completions with 99 attempts with 50 completions. That's less than 50%. All right, and I'm not going to blame Mark Sanchez. I'm not blaming him yet. Yes, he had a terrible game last week, but he's getting no protection. And these receivers, come on, man, the receivers are not catching passes, Mikey. They're just not catching passes. Stephen Hill, I love this guy. He drops a couple of passes. Santiago Holmes, he's the only one that catches them, but they don't have him on the field enough, it seems.
Well, you know, he did have a career game against Miami with those 9 catches. Listen, I know you're not blaming Sanchez. I've been saying this since day one. I think they
wait a minute. Stop for a second.
Sanchez for the 5th pick.
Timeout.
I think they overvalued his ability.
All right, let me ask you something. Going back, the guy who had a career day against Miami. Are you talking about who? Are you talking about?
Santonio Holmes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But Santiago, and he came up with a couple of clutch catches. He did.
Right.
He came up with but I had said Stephen Hill with the drop passes.
Right. But you said something. You mentioned about Santonio Holmes as well.
No, I said he's not on the field enough. I see them take him off the field for certain packages all the time, makes it. I wasn't blaming Holmes. I'm blaming the stupid offensive coordinator who was the dumbest guy on the team. I think. You know, listen. If you're paying Holmes all this money, the guy does come up with clutch catches. Why isn't he on the field for every down of the offense?
Oh, right. And why are they bringing him off to bring in this quote unquote this Tebow package wildcat nonsense? It's stupid. It's so ineffective. What has it done in the 3 games that they have played? Has this made defensive coordinators lose sleep?
No,
it's a joke.
It's actually brought some humor because there wasn't anything funnier to me than realizing that Tim Tebow really might be a few fries short of a Happy Meal when that ball bounced off his helmet the way it did. You know, I mean, come on. If you're Mark Sanchez, now that goes. I'm complaining about his statistics. But that's one of those stats that goes against Mark Sanchez, and you have everybody crying that he sucks, he's this, he's that, and he's the other thing, and you see a ball bounce off of somebody's helmet. You know, when you see a football bounce off somebody's helmet, you can't put it any place else for the guy to catch it. I mean, that was a total blunder on Tim Tebow's part.
Absolutely.
That no one will
Tebow's
blame.
He's not a wide receiver. He shouldn't be in that position.
He's not a quarterback.
My point is, it's stupid.
He should be a running back. Look at his run. Look at. Listen, the right now rushing. Right, Tim Tebow has only rushed 7 times, but he's leading the team in average per carry. He's got 5.4. He's got the longest run on the team so far out of the backfield at 22 yards. You know, he's the only guy that's touched the ball in a rushing situation that's ran the ball for more than 20 yards. You know, you got Sean Green, who's their leading rusher, who's not averaging 3 yards a carry right now. He's averaging 2.8 yards a carry. And we got our whole game plan running attack around him. Now, Powell seems to be doing okay, but, who is he? Where did he come from? Is he one of our rookies? Is he one of the draft picks?
He's a second-year guy.
Oh, second-year guy. Okay.
We had him last year, but listen, Sean Green's days as a starter are numbered because Bialy Powell is, he's averaging 4 yards per carry, and he brings a little something extra that Green doesn't have, and that's the ability to cut and to be kind of elusive, where Green has none of that. It's like he's running with lead weights on his ankles.
But Green,
he's terrible.
But you see, they're not using Green the right way. Green would be a good complement back to Powell, just the way he was with what's his name that we got rid of,
Thomas Jones.
Thomas Jones, right? When Thomas Jones, when if you're able to give Sean Green the ball in the second half, Sean Green beats the hell out of defenders. But when you're giving him the ball time and time again throughout the first half and then into the second half, he starts taking a beating, and it's not good. I like what I see with Powell. I don't like anything about Joe McKnight. Yes, his average is 4.7 yards a carry. You know, this guy's too small. If they were lining him up maybe and throwing the ball to him a little bit, maybe that's a better move for them. But listen, all in all, we're in trouble. And you know, it's not because of our defense. It's because of our offense. You know, I'm not going to blame Sanchez yet. I keep saying this over and over and over. I do admit that he had a terrible game last week, but he didn't get any protection. You know, you got to protect. If this guy's standing behind a line that's protecting him and he throws a crappy pass, I'm going to blame Sanchez. But that's not been the case. He's had happy feet. He stands in that pocket. I'm watching it. I say to myself, man, he's got a set of you-know-whats because he's standing there. There's players all around him. You can't even see him because he's so small compared to the defenders. And yet he tries to stand in there and have the faith in the line that the reporters don't see. They don't report that he is showing faith in his line, and his line is failing him, Mike.
No, there's no doubt about it. I'm not saying that he's the worst quarterback in the world. I do think that they thought a little too highly of him when they moved up to draft him at number 5. I don't think he was worthy of that. I don't think he's ever going to be an elite quarterback in this league. That being said, the line stinks. There's no running game, and receivers drop ball.
Okay,
it's
so let's
all
blame.
over the place.
So let's blame Sanchez.
Is all over the place.
So let's blame Sanchez. You just admitted and agree with me that, you know, how can we blame? Listen, you could have Peyton Manning in there. And he's not going to do a better job if he doesn't get protection. You know, you can't have listen, those teams with star quarterbacks, the Kyle Bradys, the Peyton Mannings, Eli Manning, even your favorite superstar fan. I know you got Eli underwear. I know you do. You know,
I'm wearing his jersey right now. Go ahead.
Well, you know, the thing is that even all those teams, all those elite quarterbacks, they have, and yes, I use that word, and I'm not saying Mark Sanchez is, but these teams understand the importance of protecting that guy. You know, giving him a line, take an extra year to develop a receiver, you know, take a chance on a receiver or a running back, but damn it, get yourself a solid line and protect those guys. The Jets have failed Mark Sanchez there, and yet they put Mark Sanchez up to be the guy, the face, the guy who's taking all the heat, and I don't think it's fair. And you know what's going to happen, Mike? What's going to happen is they're going to bench him, and they're going to put Tebow in there, and then everybody's going to say, what the F? Tebow's not going to be able to do anything, man. This guy is not an NFL quarterback. I'm sorry. I like him. I'm glad he's with the team. He's just being used in the wrong way. And one more time, I've said it every week since we started this show, Tony Sprono sucks. He is the worst. I am shocked that the Jets. You know, every time we do this show, I get so riled up when I start talking about the Jets because, you know, it's we're not supposed to be the guys that see this stuff. These guys make all the money. How come we can see it and they don't?
Well, listen, you don't think there's a problem with the offensive line? Of course they do, but you know, quality offensive linemen don't grow on trees, and they couldn't get anybody.
Did they try?
This is the best they got.
They tried the one guy. And Rex Ryan felt that he had a secret, super unknown line that he thought was going to do a good job. As a matter of fact, they were cutting linemen towards the end of the season. You know, they were cutting linemen, which shocked me. You know, even on both sides of the ball. You know, they don't even have a strong defensive line.
Their defense is not good.
I
Bottom
know.
line, their defense. You talked about, it's going to be the offense. Their defense stinks. I don't care what you say. They can't stop the run. They're giving up over 150 yards a game with the run. They can't stop a team on a third down conversion. Anytime there's pressure, when you need a stop, they can't do it. And now you got Revis out, and you're putting Joe McKnight in as an emergency backup. You didn't like Joe McKnight when he was the running back. I can't wait till you tell me what you don't like when you see him as the cornerback. It's good. It's terrible. It's all around. Bro.
I'm taller than Joe McKnight. You can't put a guy. And how about Cromartie? Now that Revis is down, I'm the best corner in the NFL. Oh my God!
Yeah, let me tell you something about Cromartie. Cromartie may be in the top 15, but he's not the number 2 in the league.
I see him get burned all the time.
Look at him. Yeah, he got burned terribly by was it Tannehill, the rookie from Miami, whatever his name is. No, that was the quarterback, but the receiver was a rookie receiver. It was a terrible. It was ridiculous.
I know he couldn't.
There was no coverage.
Couldn't stop him. And listen, everybody who's been really hard on Kyle Wilson. He's from Boise State. When he came, he got eaten up in his rookie year, and last year he just was pretty quiet. He didn't do much. I think he's going to be a pleasant surprise. Really, you keep an eye on Kyle Wilson. Maybe not today, but tomorrow. But he's going to be okay. But you're right. When you're going to Joe McKnight again, that's coaching and bad personnel decisions where you don't think of injury. It pains me to say that teams like the Yankees and the Giants and the New England Patriots are always good teams. They don't have the marquee superstar names all the time, but they're always good quality teams because their coaching staff and their personnel people think about injuries and they build a bench to make sure that they can handle that situation when that player's out a couple of weeks or even, God forbid, in Reeves' case, out for the season. And the Jets have no one to turn to. And
right.
it's just it's amateur. You and I talked on the phone. Tattlebaum, whatever. He's got to go, man. I mean, he's obviously, the Jets have money. The Jets have money. They have an owner willing to spend money. He wants to win, and he's put the controls in the wrong guy's hands, I think.
I agree with you 100%. Tannenbaum is he doesn't know how to evaluate talent as far as I'm concerned. I think he overpays for people. I think he overevaluates talented people. I think he thinks they're better than what they actually are. I think he's terrible. I mean, you compare him to Jerry Reese. I mean, Jerry Reese has done a great job with the Giants. I mean, look, you brought up Akeem Nicks before. Oh, he's going to be out. You know what? So what? So what? Look what happened. He was out against Carolina. Ramses Barden. Ramses Barden is now a household name.
Well,
because he comes off the bench, he catches 9 passes, 138 yards. Boom.
Yeah, but
they got somebody to step in.
Yeah, but when
Bradshaw out. Okay, what are we gonna do? We're gonna bring in Andre Brown.
Right.
Oh, okay. Who's Andre Brown? Oh, he's the guy that's just gonna run up and down the field on you.
Right.
I mean, it's no matter what you do, it seems that they can't make a wrong move.
Yeah,
they got, like you said, the bench. It's quality, depth. We have nothing.
But the difference is that they still follow Bill Parcells' model, and that is have solid lines on both sides of the ball and depth on those lines. All those other glory positions, those receivers and running backs, you got to have a good quarterback, of course, but the receivers and running backs, they will always do well when you're giving your quarterback protection or when you're blocking and creating holes. Anybody that makes it to the NFL today, I don't care what position you are the best athlete that you and I have ever seen. We could never even keep up with the fifth string guy. The practice squad guys are the best athletes we've ever seen in our lives, So I mean, come on, I mean, that's how good these guys are. So the emphasis is wrong. You don't put all your emphasis around a cornerback, let's say Darrelle Revis, and not build up your line. You don't draft 97 cornerbacks, get rid of them all, and now all of a sudden have to put a running back in as an emergency cornerback position. It makes no sense. It's stupidity. But anyway, listen, we're running out of time already, and we got all these picks to do. Now, I think I'm up on you pretty much, but I haven't.
No. See, I knew you were going to jump on that one.
Sure I am.
The first week that we picked, you and I disagreed on 4 games, and we split 2-2. So we're actually dead even.
Wait a minute. We split 2-2. I won the Cardinals and 49ers game. And Houston.
Don't let me pull my notes, Billy.
Yeah, pull your notes because right, we had
my notes.
There was 4 games we were different on. Actually, 5 games. Are you not counting the Cowboys game?
No, we differed on 4 games.
Wait a minute. We differed on the Cowboys Giants. We differed on the Browns-Eagles. I lost that game.
Seattle and the Cardinals.
Seattle and the Cardinals, the 49ers and the Packers.
Oh, wait a second. You know what it is? You're right. I hate to say this. You're right. I forgot about the Giant game because that was a Wednesday night game.
And
that
you
has to count.
You even went against your team, the team you picked for the Super Bowl. You went against them. You picked the Dolphins to beat them. So I had 4 games that I won of the 5. And I'm only seeing 1.
No, wait a second. No. We split on. There was 5 games we differed. you won the one extra one because you had the Giants. The other 4 games that we picked on Sunday that we had difference of opinion.
We split
that 2-2.
All right, wait a minute.
So you got that one game on me because of the Giant game.
Well, yeah, but wait a minute. Let's just go over this real quick. The Browns against the Eagles, I lost that one. We differed, right?
Yeah, I wish I had my notes, but go ahead. You're right about that. Go ahead.
Houston and the Dolphins. You picked the Dolphins. Houston won that game.
No, I didn't.
Yes,
Are you
did.
kidding me? I picked Houston. Why would I pick the Dolphins?
I don't know, but I have you.
No way.
I have you written here, Dolphins.
You're absolutely wrong. I know I picked Houston.
Well,
you
better.
I'm going to find my picks when we get off the show, and I'm going to mail them to you.
All right.
No, I picked Houston.
All right. So, but I picked Houston, so that couldn't have been. And so if there was 5, I picked
the Cardinals in Seattle. I had Seattle. I had Seattle. You had the Cardinals,
and the Cardinals won.
Yeah, the Browns in Cleveland.
I had the Browns, and I lost.
Right, and there was 2 other ones that we had
the
a difference in opinion.
The 49ers
as well.
The 49ers against the Packers. You picked the Packers. 49ers won.
Right, and there was one other.
And I'm telling you, it was the Houston Dolphin game.
No,
you picked the Dolphins.
Absolutely wrong. There's no way I'm picking. I'm not a moron.
All right, listen.
Houston, who's going to the Super Bowl, in my opinion. No way. Dolphins stink. They got nobody.
Listen, you look up your notes while I go through these. All right. So you do that. We're running out of time. So let's go down the list right now. We got New England against Buffalo. I think, obviously, I like Buffalo. I think Buffalo's doing real well, but I'm picking the Pats in that game.
All right, I'm going with the Bills in that game.
Just remember what you're saying.
I'm right. I write everything down.
Yeah.
I don't have week 1 somewhere. It's somewhere around.
You're going to be apologizing to me on air, but anyway.
No way. Go ahead.
Anyway. Let's see. The next game is Detroit against Minnesota. You know, I think I got to go with the Lions over the Vikings. Who do you like?
I do too, because of the fact that they're playing in Detroit, and Detroit's going to come back from there. That terrible loss to Tennessee.
The Atlanta Falcons are going up against Carolina, right? Is it Carolina?
Yes, in Atlanta.
Yeah, in Atlanta, and Atlanta's undefeated, one of the only handful of teams undefeated. I'm going with the Falcons on that one.
Of course, so am I.
All right. We got I know that you're going to find it and you're going to go, you're right, Billy C. You're right again. But 49ers are playing the Jets. This is a tough one for me. As much as I love the Jets, and I just don't. I think the 49ers are in a nasty mood. I think the 49ers are going to beat the Jets.
I do too. If the 49ers are coming in undefeated, I might have said, you know what? Maybe I might have taken the Jets as the upset, but since they lost that game, there's no way that Harbaugh's losing to the Jets now.
Chargers are going into Kansas City. It's always tough at Arrowhead. Who do you like in that one?
Kansas City.
You like the Chiefs. You know what? The Chargers are a team I'm not that crazy about, even though they're winning. I'm going with you. I'm taking the Chiefs in that game. The next game that's on the list is your boys that you picked against the first week, but Houston Texans going up against Tennessee, who's in a lot of trouble. I think the Texans are going to go to 4-0.
My team that I've picked every week so far, yes, Houston Texans are definitely going
every week, but that first week for some crazy reason.
You're so out of your mind.
No, you're gonna listen, man. I write them down.
I'm gonna send it to you.
I write it down and I have it here. Even if that was the case, that would be the only way that we would be evened up. But and we're not evened up because I got the Giants. But anyway, I mean you had the Giants. Seattle against St. Louis. St. Louis is awful. I'm taking the Seahawks.
I like the Seahawks defense. Fast, tough cornerbacks, great front seven. I like the Seahawks as well.
All right, the next game is what do we got? Arizona surprising everybody against Miami. I'm going with the Cards, man.
You got to. I mean, that's the other undefeated team. There's 3 altogether. That's one of the 3 playing in Arizona. Dolphins making the long trek across country. Got to go with the Cardinals.
Broncos and Raiders. I think it's time for the Broncos to step up. I like the Raiders. I think they're doing a lot better, but I'm picking the Broncos in this one.
Yeah, I mean, That's a tough one. I'm going to go with the Raiders in this one.
Going with the Raiders.
They've played well in Denver, and they seem to always step up their game. I'm going with the upset. I'm going to take the Raiders.
The Bengals are going to Jacksonville. I'm taking Cincinnati on this. I think they turn the season around with this win.
Tough one. Who'd you say you're taking?
I'm taking the Bengals.
Yeah. Even though it's in Jacksonville, and they have a pretty solid defense, I'm going to go with the Bengals as well.
Green Bay is playing New Orleans. New Orleans is having all kinds of trouble. So's Green Bay, but I'm taking the Packers.
You got to take the Packers, especially after that loss on Monday Night Football. They're going to be pissed. They're playing at Lambeau. Saints just give up a ton of yards, especially through the air. You got to go with Green Bay.
Tampa Bay is hosting the Washington Redskins, and Tampa Bay is the favorite. I'm taking the Skins.
No, I'm taking Tampa Bay with their stingy D, and I think they contain RG3. So you're taking the Skins, and I'm taking Tampa Bay.
Philadelphia against the New York Giants. I'm taking the Eagles because I hate the Giants, and I'll take the loss if they don't win. I'm taking the Eagles.
I'm actually going to take New York. I think Michael Vick has been turning the ball over way too much, even though Giants secondary isn't that good, but the front seven is still solid. They're playing really well right now. The last two games, they've just really dominated. So I'm going to say that trend is going to continue. I'm taking the Giants.
Monday Night Football, Bears are playing against the Bears are playing against Dallas. I like the Cowboys this year, but I like the Bears better. I'm picking the Bears over the boys.
I have no faith in Jay Cutler. The Cowboys have the best pass defense right now. Haven't given up a touchdown in the air. Playing in Dallas, I like the Cowboys.
All right, so we differed on a lot of them. You're going to find that I was right again, so I'm going to be up a couple of games on you, so we'll see. My diamond picks, which I did, I'm 2 for 2. Last time we played, I got both of them right. I got 2 more this week. But this time, one favorite and one underdog. This is with the points. These are my diamond picks. Take the Patriots minus 3.5 against the Buffalo Bills, and I like the Redskins plus 2.5 against Tampa Bay. And speaking of Tampa Bay, one of the other guys that's up for the Hall of Fame is Warren Sapp of Tampa Bay. Now, we still don't have a winner for our trivia question, so we don't even have time to read that. So I'm going to assume nobody's going to get that one right. But I want to do On This Day in Sports History because there's on New York sports history, because there's some interesting thing. On this day, September 29th, in 1880, check this one out, Brooklyn Mikey, in the first baseball game at the original Polo Grounds. Now, you're going to be shocked at the names of these teams, okay? This is 1880. In the first baseball game at the original Polo Grounds, the New York Metropolitans defeat the Washington Nationals 4-2 in a game that was shortened to 5 innings due to darkness. Over 2,500 people were in attendance. Both of these teams were in an independent league, and that's what took place on this day in 1880. I found that amazing, considering that there's a Washington Nationals team now, and, of course, the New York Metropolitans are the Mets. Also on this day, September 29th, in 1944, in the first World Championship fight ever televised, Willie Pep defends his featherweight title with a 15-round unanimous decision win over Chalky Wright at Madison Square Garden. This happened to have been the first fight under the new one-year contract with the Gillette Razor Company and NBC. And finally on this day, September 29th, in 1954, Willie Mays makes the catch that we've seen 100 zillion times on the replays, the over-the-shoulder catch of Vic Wertz's long drive to center field when pinch hitter Dusty Rose homers off of Bob Lemon in the 10th, giving the lead and the win to the Giants 5-2 over the Indians in Game 1 of the World Series in that year. And that what takes place on this day in those years, 1880, 1944, and in 1954. Any final thoughts, Brooklyn Mike?
Yes, I found my notes. As soon as you and I hang up, I'm going to prove to you that I was right.
How are you going to prove? I have on my notes that you...
Facts notes to you. Whatever I got to do,
I have my notes.
I have right in front of me.
I have on my notes that it was written the other way, but I got to take your word for it. So I'm one game ahead of you going into this week. I'll take your word for it. Yeah, right, sure, Mikey. But anyway, great job, Mike. I look forward to next week. To everybody, make sure you tune in next week to Talkin New York Sports with Brooklyn Mikey and yours truly, Billy C. Hey, we'll see you next time, man. What do we like to say, Mike?
See you next week.
No.
Say ciao.
Ciao, baby. We'll see you guys later. Take care.